Hi all, into my walkthrough of kioptrix2. I think it's important to remember when looking at these types of things, however, that myself and everybody else that does them has invariably practiced first. We've invariably gone through it. So if exploits or commands don't work first time for yourself, don't get too stressed out by it. And just enjoy it. Remember, take some time. Okay, so here we are in Cali, a bit bigger. Now I have created a directory to work in, which isn't that one. Let me see, where are you? Well, it was that one. Of course, if I had any understanding about Linux command line, I'd have done that. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we've got our kioptrix box running, and we need to find it. Okay, so we'll scan the network. My favorite tool is NetDiscover, and we are on /24, which is my home network. That's finished. Okay, now you can see there's lots of things there. I happen to know, however, that the one I'm looking for is VMware, which is 192.168.0.150. Okay, so that's what we'll put down as that's our host. So initially what I tend to do, let's just see what's running on it. We know it's alive, so we don't need to ping it to check the host is up. And we'll just do a syn scan. For the sake of argument, now we use T5 so that it's quick for the demonstration purposes, but in reality you wouldn't. You would use T4 or T3. Try and back it down a little bit so you're not putting lots and lots of traffic across the network. So, the less noise you make, the longer you can hang around to find stuff out. Okay. We've got these. We can also do a UDP scan, and whilst that's doing, because we've got port 80 open, we'll go through and see. Okay, so we have a login box. We can try the originals stuff. Nothing. Okay. Also, there was 443. Go there. There's nothing there. Nothing for us to look at. Okay, so the only one we've got open on UDP is RPC bind. Now, what I'm going to do is nothing in here at the minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and just write these out to a file so that we can start gathering some notes about our target. Okay, so that's now written out to that. And we'll just go back up and do the TCP scan again. And that will just append it to that file. Yeah, so we've got the information there. Okay. So what we should also do as well, while I was looking at this, is we should have a look and see if there are any hidden hidden folders, any hidden pages or anything like that we can't actually see. So we use Nikto host 192.168.0.50. You could also use Dirbuster as well. I tend not to use it only because I have issues with it, specifically on this host, and I've yet to sit down and work out what they are. So I'm by no means the dog's danglies. Okay, so there's just whilst it's going on, there's a couple of things that we found here. We found the server and the version. Found it's running PHP 4.39, which we saw it was running PHP anyway because of the URL. We have post, which is a potential way of getting onto the site. It means we can upload files to the site. There doesn't appear to be any hidden pages that wouldn't be there. Icons, manual, all these are what you'd normally expect to see with Apache. Yeah. Okay, so what we can do is we can bring this back over, because what we did have, we remember, is we had this. And we can try administrator password, try and get it. However, what I would suggest is that if you look at the page source, see if there's anything there that you could use, anything that give you an idea. But I would actually begin fuzzing. Okay, so go out to Google, search for SQLi authentication bypass. The one I like to use is here. What we can do is simply copy and then paste. These in. Try them one at a time. Fortunately for me, I've got it bookmarked because for some reason that happens to me on a regular basis. Okay. Now, as I said before, all these are already practiced and already looked at before they go to be making a video. And this video is very ham-fisted, and it's only my second attempt, as you can see. So I do happen to know that this particular badger right here is the one that works. Or not. That particular badger. So I happen to know that that particular badger is the one that works. Okay, but I mean, technically speaking, what you would do, you could go through that, or you could write a script to check those and enumerate them. You could put them into Burp Suite and have Burp Suite do it for you. I mean, you just go down the list, and I imagine that multiple would work. Okay. So now we've essentially bypassed the login, and we are here. So if you view the page source on this one, basic administrative web console, it's nothing really. If this was a capture the flag type thing, there might be a flag here for you to find. Or okay, so if you ping an address, like it's telling us we can, we get back this, which looks remarkably like the response we get there. So we can assume that in the background, all this is doing is just running that command. So as we can see, if we then run the ping command and put a command next to it, we get the response that we are in fact the Apache user. And there are, as you can quite clearly see, quite a few things we can do. We can ls the directory. We can that's the Etsy password file. And what I'd be tempted to do now is to basically copy these into a file as you go. So as you're gathering information, you can put them into files. Okay. 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 So now we have that. So what else can we do? Well, if we can do this, then we can run commands. Sort of, we can carry out executions on it, which sounds actually quite bad, but it's not. So we can execute commands on it. And so what we're attempting to do is try and get a shell back to us. Because if we can connect back to us through here, if this was behind a firewall, that would probably be allowed out because you allow everything out, nothing's really blocked. And so we could evade the firewall that way. So before we start, I want to set up a listener. So just netcat, then we executing it with the local port 4444. Okay, then we have to do a couple of other things. And one of the things, again, going back to the internet, you go to Google and keep typing that, don't I? Okay, and this is the one I like to use because it works. So big up to the pen test monkey, whoever that may or may not be. Now we know it's Linux because we discovered that back here. We know it's CentOS. So we can assume that we'll have access to bash. So grab that one. And this is simply to edit it. So what we want to do, want to give it our IP address because we want it to connect back to us. The port we want it to connect back on. Okay. And then if we go back to here, take this out, you can see it's already in there. Okay. Submit. Obviously it doesn't do anything. But if we come back here, we've now got a shell. And here we can ls it, as you see. ID is Apache. We can password file as we did previously. We can see there's a couple of users. So what can we do from here? Well, we can't really do that much because we've got a restricted shell, very restricted shell. And of course, obviously the aim always is to get to root. So we can in order to find more information about it, we can also assume that it will come with Python because majority of all operating systems come with at least Python 2.7 installed. And what we can do is use a utility that was written called Linux Priv Checker. Okay. So if I just find that. P1. Copy it from here. Not to there, to here. Okay. Now, how are we going to get that onto that box? Well, there's a couple of ways of doing it. We could put it in where it was originally, which is the var www, and then using Apache or some other web server, we could do it that way. But a much quicker way of doing it, I discovered from one of the courses I was on by a guy called Heath Adams, was to use a Python module. And essentially what that allows us to do is just to spin up a simple web server within the directory we're in. So our working directory that we're in now is where the server will serve the files from. And to do that, we simply do that. Okay. We go back to our box, cd into temp, nothing in there. And then it's just simply a case of And there we go, we've transferred it across. Okay, so that's now there. And with this, we have an awesome opportunity to look deeper into the box that we've compromised. Okay, so coming back up to the top, you can see there's a whole wealth of information here. You could literally spend ages just looking around this. So we start off, if I can find it. Okay, so we've got the kernel version, and this is actually what we're gonna use. It's a good place to start because there are, well, there's exploits aplenty for kernels. But looking down, you got the interface, network. So you could, as a potential for pivoting, you could look at this, and if it was multi-homed, essentially we've compromised this box. But if this box had access to, say, back-end database servers on secure networks, so networks aren't front-facing, which is actually common practice, may potentially use another interface to get out that way. Well, this would have the routes going that way, and it'd have the ability to then move on to another box further inside an organization. This isn't. Got the active internet connections. Connections we're on here somewhere. Standard connections, routing table, file system. This cron that's running as root. That's another potential way in. All the way down. If we go all the way to the bottom, and obviously the etc password file with these two users, MySQL. If we come all the way to the bottom, we even get one day I'll buy a new mouse. We even get potential list of exploits applicable to this kernel. And I mean, you can quite easily go, I mean, you can just check these. So if we go there, okay, local privilege escalation. Okay, but the one we're going to use, and I'll show you why, is actually, I'll go through Google that way first. So when we have a look at this, we see that the kernel is 2.69-55 Okay, so if we search for any of them and see what exploits are out there, the first one to come up is the one that I tested with earlier, which is this one. Okay, and we've got what it's for, 32-bit, which is ours. It was tested against our version, and even the instructions to build. Okay, so we'll download this. and I will move that finding a terminal I can use. So 9542. Okay, there's actually a copy of it in var www dot. So if I copy that to here, see that it's there. And obviously, due to the nature of what we're doing, I prefer, and it makes sense, to compile the exploits on the target box. So we come back to here. Okay, we know where it is. We know what it is. Then we see it's here. Then simply compile it. This warning comes up, nothing to worry about in this particular instance. Okay, now by default, GCC, when it compiles, it creates an a.out file. You can put other options in to get a funky name come out the other side or whatever, but ultimately I don't really see the point. I'm by no means a master at compiling code, so if there is any reason why you'd use options over something else, then I'm obviously more than happy to hear it. Okay, so now our code is compiled and we have our exploit. Check our ID again. Make it executable. Nearly didn't. Oh. Again, make it executable. All right. Out. And as it worked, we're now root. Okay. So grab the Etsy shadow file. So in the Python through there. Back here. Okay. So we can then copy this into here. And then if you want to know how to do it, so it's unshadow password. Let's see. Shadow. And that puts the two files back together so that you can then go on to crack the passwords. If you want to run that into another utility, which of course you'd want to, simply to shadow.txt, and there you've got shadow.txt. But ultimately, that is it. You have root rights. You can check the check the mail. You can see that get and have a look. If you have a look, see, cat, Harold, nothing in there. Nothing in there. Okay. Now what I'd also be tempted to do, temp, is remove everything out of temp. So clear up after yourself. You don't need it there anymore. And then just for the sake of it, okay, so we can now, I was doing the same one, so we can now SSH onto the box, and we've got a full shell. You could quite easily change the password for root. Change successfully. And you've got full root. You wouldn't do that as a general rule, I wouldn't have thought. You would probably want to maintain your anonymity for as long as possible. And of course, if somebody's worked out their root password has changed, well, that's not ideal. So essentially, you would then go on to password cracking, which I'll do in a later video because it's something that very much interests me. But that's it. That's it. We walked through on there. There's other ways into kioptrix2 as there is with all of them. This is actually a really simple way. I've used it as a practice for making videos and hopefully to pass on a bit of knowledge in a different way to whoever watches it. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon.